Welcome to Fundraising Leaders with Drew, where we embark upon a journey to discover the heart and soul of nonprofit fundraising and decode the strategies that lead to fundraising success. I'm your host, Drew Clancy, and I am grateful to be joined today by Heidi Daniels, the Vice President for Development at the American Liver Foundation. Heidi's strategic vision and steadfast dedication to social impact are driving meaningful change, especially in advancing liver health and disease prevention. Let's jump right in with Heidi. Well, Heidi, thank you again for being with us today on Fundraising Leaders with Drew. Let's start with your background. How did you get involved with development fundraising? What was it that sort of attracted you to this world?
Well, it's a kind of a funny story. I started out doing costume design and doing that would actually work some off-Broadway shows and for the New York City Ballet. But it was a very unstable job, either feast or famine. And so I wanted to see what else I could do. And I looked into this position for a special event coordinator at the National Kidney Foundation. And this is the perfect job. It's all the organizational and preparing skills that I have for theater with troubleshooting and all that. And I still had a job the next day after the event was over. And the bonus was I was able to do something good and have a meaningful impact in the world. And it was just, I felt so lucky to stumble into development and philanthropy. And it's definitely made a huge difference in my life.
Hear, 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 hear. Looking back on the early part of your career, was there perhaps a moment when it really sort of came upon you that this was the right place for you, or there was something about this that really aligned with your strengths?
Yeah, I'm a very mission-driven person, and I really have to believe in the causes that I'm working for. And the moments that happen are usually when you're one-on-one with an individual that I work mainly in health and human services. So you're working with individuals that have a disease or an illness or struggling with something, and you're able to connect with that person and make it a positive impact in their life. And once I found that's those connections, I was like, it really synced with who I am as a person and really drew me to the field. And then I started studying fundraising, and it was very creative, and you could do a lot of different things and have a lot of fun with it. And I knew is the perfect match for for what I wanted to do.
Oh, here, 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 here. Um, you are, have experience across a number of different sectors of the nonprofit world. Obviously now in health, but earlier in your career, you were involved in advocacy for children. You also have been involved in homelessness. How would you when you think about the different types of nonprofit organizations, um, what do you see as what are the common things they have, things that are similar, and maybe specifically now, what's different for you about the American Liver Foundation, about maybe more specific to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, with health and human services, the connection is the people. But I think when you have a health issue, it's a lot of more personal patience and connections that way that you don't necessarily have. When I was working with homelessness, there's not as many people who have direct connections to homelessness. We are talking to talking to the population in a different way to get them to
Sure.
care about what's happening to another individual. But when I was at the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, it's just a bunch of passionate parents who want to find a cure for their child. So there's differences in how the mission's delivered, but the commonality is again the passion for the mission and moving forward. at the American Liver Foundation, it again, we're back to somebody being impacted by a disease. And the family unit is impacted as well. So really trying to support the individuals on their liver journey. The majority of the time, liver disease is like 100 different types of liver disease, which I did not know until I started here. Was the journey all usually leads to transplantation, which is the ultimate gift, I think, is being able to, you can donate part of your liver and be a living donor. And I think that's a wonderful story to tell when somebody receives a transplant and then the donor themselves having the story of saving a life. So it's a wonderful mission, and we're actually doing a rebirthday events for people who've had, they call it their rebirthday when they've had their transplantation this month, which is Donate Life Month on April. So it's been very exciting to hear those stories and see those journeys.
Here, here. Um, Thinking about your current work, how much of your time do you spend on the major gift side? So, thinking about your current role, and how much of your time do you spend on the major gift side, and how much time do you spend more on the annual fund side? And maybe just reflect on that a little bit, both perhaps in your current role as well as perhaps other roles, and how those are, what's required, what makes for a successful major gift effort versus an annual fund effort.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the variety in my past, when I worked at the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, it was really more annual fund. It was very event driven, it was event heavy. So it didn't have as much time to invest into major gifts and major donor efforts. And here at ALF, we have a separate event department. So while we work in conjunction with them and make sure we support them and the donors that come through those events, I'm able to really focus on the bigger picture stuff, long-term partnerships with industry partners, obviously the major donor efforts. So it's been nice to have that time to focus not on the immediate urgent, but on the more big picture, something that's important, but not necessarily having a deadline tomorrow, that you're able to really be thoughtful and strategic about what you do.
Love that. Tell us a little bit about strategically how you approach major donors and what, yeah, really from the philosophy all the way up, perhaps through the conversations and the interactions that go back and forth.
Yeah, the most important thing about major donors and major gifts is finding out their why the donor is there, what resonates with them, what their story is, and developing a relationship so that can share that with you, as feel comfortable sharing that with you, and really they help direct the conversation to the solicitation because they're part of the dialogue. And once you find out their why, and you're able to match it with the programming or an event or a project that really resonates with them and really lights up their why, it makes the solicitation almost a after fact ask. It's kind of like, oh yeah, of course I'll do that. So
Here, here. Can you think of an example, perhaps in your current role, again, could be earlier in your career, where that really came together, understanding the donor's why and how it ultimately translated into a major gift?
absolutely. The one of the best examples was a mom, and when I started at JDRF, she wanted to develop this program that helped provide support to other families living with type 1 diabetes. And I wholeheartedly supported her in developing that. And it became actually a model that was used and replicated throughout the country at other JDRF chapters, really providing the meeting times and the support that families needed. And that not only grew their walk program and other things, but for this donor, she felt heard. She felt like she was able to have an impact, and their family became a significant donor to the chapter. And I was still connected. But I think it's really listening to what that person really wanted and to be able to make sure that her impact was really felt. And again, it had ramifications throughout the entire organization.
Here, here. How do you approach or prepare for a conversation like that? What's do you is there a certain process that you typically go through, or yeah, share a little bit around that?
Yeah. So, you start with doing research and make sure that there's a lot of tools out there that you can research the donor. You can find out a lot of information about donors. It's a little scary at times how much you can actually find. But you take that information and obviously you use it, ethically. Don't just use it for other purposes. But you're really trying to again understand their capacity, their ability to really have a significant donation possibly come from their family, and then you really look through the record, see their history of giving, any conversations that have been had. By the time you get around to solicitation, you've had many conversations. You find out, if they have a donor advised fund, if they are, like to make outright gifts, they like to make pledges, if they like to name something. So you'd have all this information collected. So when you have that final conversation, you're able to really present something that resonates with the individual.
Sure, 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 sure. Um, let's talk a little bit about challenges. Fundraising today obviously comes with lots of challenges. There's the economic uncertainty, donor fatigue can be, uh, just the distractions, the digital and otherwise, in the world in which we live in. How do you, as a nonprofit fundraising leader, what are you kind of doing? What strategies are you using to combat this? How do you stay relevant? How do you keep what you're doing front of mind for that donor?
Yeah, that is a challenge. There's many things that many factors at play today. I think, I've been in the field almost 40 years, so I've lived through a variety of ups and downs. So I had a whole golf tournament that was built around the construction industry, and that fell apart in the early 90s, and real estate, and so having to shift gears. And so I think we've all been through a variety of challenges, recessions, and things like that. And the main key thing is staying in communication with your donor, is finding out how they want to be communicated with. Again, it's emails, text, uh, if they like to have phone calls. I'm a big believer in handwritten notes, but making sure that communication continues to happen, to try to find things that are of interest to them, that are maybe new and exciting, that'll be happening within the organization. Like we're just launching a non-designated donor, living donor network. So people are willing to donate parts of their livers to individuals they've never met, to try to really expand the amount of organs available for transplantation. So that's obviously very exciting to our community, and really getting the word out there about that and how they can be part of it if they want to get on the wait list, if they want to, so there's a variety of ways. It's finding those networks, or those niches that people really are excited by. We do a lot of research, and research is really key. It provides a lot of hope to individuals of finding cures and treatments. So really talking about that research, and keeping, again, it's ongoing communication and staying in front of the donors. It's a challenge because there's so many distractions in the world, and you just have to be creative and keep a positive attitude, and keep putting your message out there.
Here, here. When you joined the American Liver Foundation, what did you identify as the biggest opportunity for growth, and how did you begin addressing it?
So the biggest opportunity for growth is a really strong corporate partnership program, and really keeping that engine running, and having that going. But the biggest opportunity is in the major donor area, to do an assessment of our current donors, what they look like, where it's try to segment them so we're able to target them with the individual messages is very important. I was able to hire a major gift person, which has been really helpful. We did a wealth engine screening and have gotten more sophisticated in how we segment our donors so that we're able to really target messages that are appropriate for them to listen to. So I think we just scratched the surface in that area, and I'm very excited with what that'll happen down the road with ALF.
Are there some specific strategies or tactics that you're looking to implement here, going forward to continue to build upon that success?
Yes. So we're obviously we're looking at our current donors, but we're also trying to look at new donors and how to get new donors and do outreach to individuals that may have just been newly diagnosed or have something that just happened, so that we can be there to support them in their journey and make sure that they have the resources they need, but that then enroll them in being part of the mission and funding the mission. So it's a two-pronged strategy. Obviously, you want to keep them, retain the donors that you have, but get the new donors. So we have strategies built out for each of those components.
Love that. Let's talk maybe a little bit about some of your prior experience with juvenile diabetes, as well as Pine Street, which is
Yeah.
the Pine Street Inn, which is a nonprofit focused on the homelessness. Um, Thinking back on those two experiences, are there kind of specific lessons you learned, things that have been valuable for you now in your current role? Um, any reflections on those?
Yeah. They're very different in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of commonalities because they both are trying to solve a problem. And with JDRF, you're trying to solve the how to cure type 1 diabetes, the whole autoimmune issue, and making sure that children who have type 1 have the tools and resources to live a healthy life until they get to the time when we really find a cure for that. When I was at Pine Street, the mission was to obviously solve homelessness, and they are problem solving by investing in shelter in housing for individuals with have experienced homelessness, the unhoused people, that we're really trying to make sure that they have low threshold housing, so they're able to get into apartments and have the support they need. Because once they get into a housing situation, their lives tend to stabilize. You can't imagine how unstable your life is if you're don't have a place to live. You can't get mail. You don't know what's going to happen one day the next. If once you get into an apartment and you have a stable living situation, you're able to do a lot more to really improve their life, as far as having regular doctor's appointments, so their health gets better. Be able to possibly find employment. So there's a variety of tools. I think that both were trying to solve problems and really focused on those things that are matter to the donors.
You mentioned earlier kind of the education or learning to become an effective fundraiser. Uh, what strategies do you use to continue to learn, to be a lifelong learner, improve your skills? Obviously, today, with AI having a big impact, any thoughts, reflections on that, on staying, sharpening the saw, as Stephen Covey used to say?
Yeah, early in my career, I relied a lot on the Association of Fundraising Professionals for a lot of their training and tools and seminars and conferences, and really were able to take advantage of learning from more seasoned fundraisers and a lot of great ideas. Got a certificate in nonprofit management. Working toward my master's in public administration at Seton Hall. So really the ongoing learning, and then as you get more advanced in your career, it's really finding other practitioners that you respect and having that network to reach out to brainstorm with, to see what could possibly happen, what they've done, what their experiences have been. And I think that's an ongoing learning. And then it's really contingent on you to look for what's next in your area of interest. So to read different books from different you know, sectors as well, not just stay in the nonprofit sector, but really take a look at, there's a great book that talks about being an advocate. And while that's not directly fundraising, it really is sharing your story and sharing your why. So it's just, being curious, I think, is the important part of continuing to learn in your career.
Well said. Are there any particular, you mentioned kind of peer to peer and learning from peers, as well as potentially mentors or books that maybe you've read? Are there, is there someone in particular or a particular learning experience that, has been impactful for you?
Yes, I was very fortunate to have many mentors in my career that really helped support me, would direct me into books they've read, resources they use. I'm very fortunate to have the network of peers that I'm able to call. I did have early in my career a person that was just uh, he directed me and my career, and I learned from him by watching him. So I think a lot of times in your career too, you can learn what not to do, how you don't like from other leaders and other things. I've been fortunate to have some good supervisors and I've learned from, but you also can learn about what not to do and how you'd like to lead as a person as you mature in the field.
Love that. Love that. Um, let's go back to earlier in your career, an annual fund. You mentioned that that was an important part of those engagements. What do you think are some of the key ingredients for a successful annual fund program?
You have to keep re-energizing it every year. It has to be, I think the fundraising is a challenging field because when you start a new year, you start at zero again and you have to do it all over again. So it's really keeping that sense of excitement and urgency around what you're doing. I think there's a lot of very, you do gala year after year after year. I always said to my staff, we have a good cake. What's our icing for this year? How do we make it different? How do we make it fun? You want to have the basics there and make sure it's a really strong event, but what else can we add to make it different, to change it up? We started doing prior, like a month prior to the event, I was at JDRF, a research briefing, so that people who were attending the gala and other, supporters could come and learn about the investments that they were making and the results of those investments. Because once you're at a gala, people are there for fun. They're having a few drinks. They're not going to really pay attention to like all the research stuff. So if you can educate them ahead of time, you're able to then really showed results in the event itself of people raising their paddles for Fundacure and investing in the research they had just heard about.
Uh, love that. Um, thinking or reflecting now a little bit more on kind of the leadership aspect of your role. You had mentioned earlier in our conversation the importance of mission. What do you do as a leader to keep your team connected, to the mission? Especially when faced with the kind of the normal day-to-day pressures of the fundraising goals and operational things that have to get done. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a challenge because we're at ALF, we're an all remote organization. So, when I was in an office with my staff coming in regularly, you could do different things as a group and have that sense of bring it back into mission and building that strong team. And I think you have to shift gears a bit, obviously doing things remotely, but I try to have a theme every year. So one year it was onward and upward, and I was able to find mugs. So everybody had a mug, and we were able to stay focused on that. So I try to find a different theme every year that we work around, that we use as a calling a mantra for what we do throughout the rest of the year.
Love that. Love that. Let's go back, maybe more on the major gift side, although this also can apply certainly to your team. But tell us a little bit about your philosophy as it pertains to trust, building trust with donors, with your team, with the communities you serve. Are there any kind of specific strategies or tactics, Heidi, that you use with that to build trust?
To build trust, I think you need to be a genuine communicator, and to be really um, uh, transparent as you can be in your communications with individuals, so that they feel they get to know you as well, that it's not just a one-way street, that you're in it together. I think it's also important for staff and donors is that they feel heard, and to make sure that you listen to where their concerns and where their ideas come from, because they want to have their ideas have an impact too, and share that. I think it's important to be a leader that is, um, again, always willing to listen and does what they say they're going to do, that walks the walk, doesn't just talk the talk, but walks the walk. I think, when we were doing events at JDRF, I mean, I'm moving tables with everybody else. I mean, it's not like, I'm above doing anything that if not willing to ask somebody to do something that I'm not willing to do.
Here, here. Final question. What advice would you give someone entering the field of nonprofit fundraising? What are the kind of key things perhaps they should be thinking about, or perhaps the learnings they should be pursuing?
I would say get the basics down really, really strongly. It's about the fundamentals of fundraising, and make sure find courses, reach out to other practitioners. AFP has a lot of those fundraising fundamental classes, and so once you know the building blocks of that, then you can take it and really expand your knowledge in different areas. And again, be creative. Always be willing to ask questions, to really, if you find an area that interests you, to try to find a mentor in that area, I think was really helpful if you're starting out in your career. I think that it's also important that you find an organization that resonates with you personally, that you're passionate about their mission, because I think that is what drives a fundraiser and makes them successful, is their own passion that they bring to the organization.
Here, here. Heidi, thank you so much for all your thoughts and reflections and insights today. And I look forward to connecting with you again.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much.